I wish I could tell you that the tailgate being completely welded shut was one of my biggest concerns with this Jeep, but that there's plenty of other concerns that are way worse than that. Allow me to introduce you to my 1983 CJ7. It has the 4.2 liter straight six mated to a 3-speed manual transmission. I'm not sure what model, but we'll find out once we pull it out. It has a Dana 300, supposedly has a Dana 300 transfer case, which very likely could be a Dana 20. It has the AMC 20 axle in the rear and the low pinion Dana 30 front axle with manual hubs, which is pretty cool on old Jeeps. LED lights that do not work, but look kind of cool. A healthy grille, which was a plus with this Jeep. Some kind of custom flat fenders. And lots of crud and rust. This Jeep needs a ton of work just to be drivable down the road while being safe. Even more work to get it on a trail, and it may be unrealistic to revive this thing to the point where it is a very capable off-road vehicle, which was ideally what I wanted to do with a CJ7. So we'll see what we can do with this project and how far we can push it. So let's go. So before we start ripping into this Jeep, I wanted to go ahead and give you a little bit of a backstory and tell you a little bit of the history behind it. So I've had this old Jeep for several years now, and always wanted an old CJ. This was the best I thought I could find at the time. And funny thing is, right after I got it, I found a lot better ones on Marketplace. But that's just how it works. And so it's sat for several years before I bought it. It's sat several years since I took ownership of it. It runs. It runs really, really rough, but there's no valve chatter or any kind of really weird lifter tick. No knock. I let it warm all the way up. I even drove it around the yard. The brakes don't work. That's how I found out the brakes don't work. And the transmission shifts through its gears, but the clutch is just destroyed. I don't know what's going on with the clutch. It's bad enough that the drivetrain needs to come out. If it was any other vehicle than an old Jeep, probably just drop the transmission and figure out what's going on. But these old Jeeps are really easy to pull the whole drivetrain out in one shot. Plus, the transfer case is not shifting at all. It's stuck in too high right now, and so something's going on there. So with all that going on, it made sense to pull the drivetrain out. And with that being said, this project really is more like exploratory surgery. That's kind of my whole theme for it. What I kind of find out with the parts that are here will be what determines where I go with the project. I don't have a hardcore wheeler right now. I have my Xterra, which is great for some back trails, some scenic driving, but it's open diffs. There's not a whole lot of aftermarket support for it. I'd like to sass it, but that's really a bag of worms with those. And I really like driving it as a daily driver, and so that's another reason why I'm not trying to chop that thing up like crazy right now. So this would be a great candidate for that hardcore wheeler, but if it's either so bad that the frame's not really worth building a lot and reinforcing it, it needs some frame repair, but frame repair and reinforcing an old CJ frame for some pretty gnarly wheeling's totally different. And if it's good enough to keep as an original CJ7, then it also doesn't make sense to be a hardcore wheeler. It would be a great nostalgic Jeep. So kind of wanted to give you a little bit of background before start really ripping into it. It's pretty nasty underneath. It's had like years and years of oil and gear oil leaking all over. I tried to pressure wash it, but it definitely warrants changing over and preparing to get nasty. So I'm gonna go get changed and let's start getting into it. This Jeep had been leaking gear oil from the rear differential since the day I brought it home. and I was really curious on the health of that ring and pinion. Had it been run with no gear oil? Were teeth chewed up? So not only was I tired of the leak, but curiosity got the best of me. And several months ago, I pulled the diff cover off, and there was gear oil in it, and the ring and pinion was fine. I cleaned everything up, put some RTV on it, and put it back in place. And I couldn't remember if I torqued the bolts down. So here I'm just double checking that before I put oil back in it. I did the trick. I was starting to wonder if because the tires are so flat on the driver's side rear that it was kind of angled back and it was going to take more gear oil than it should. But probably right under 3 quarts, it came out, started running out. That's what you want to see. And then when you're tightening the plug, don't over tighten it. Does not need to be super tight. It just needs to be snug. I'm very thankful that this one wasn't, based on the rest of the Jeep, wasn't over tightened like crazy, or someone put it back on with an impact. So I'll take that as a win for now. I'm sure I'll have plenty of losses while I'm working on this, but one win, I'll take it. So before we can put the slime in, we're going to go ahead and take the actual valve core out. That way we can go in and pump that stuff in there without gumming up the probably really, really old and crusty valve core in there. Well, I've got extras. I have a feeling that once I take that out, it'll probably be no good. But we'll find out. It's going to be filled with slime anyways. It's probably going to seal itself if that valve core is bad, or if I break it. So, all right, let me get this thing flat, and we'll start getting ready for the slime. So I've only used slime one other time, and it was on some like junkyard mud terrain 33s that I got for like next to nothing for an old 4Runner I had. And like they were in okay shape. They leaked, but not because of tires. It was because the rims were kind of beat up, and I think that there was one of them was, excuse me, bent, and had just enough where it was like a super slow leak. So I filled all 4 of them up with slime, and they lost balance really, really bad, and they were really noisy. It made the truck shake. More, I couldn't tell at first if it was shaking because of the slime or because the mud terrains were so unevenly worn, but I'm pretty sure it was the slime too. And man, I drove on those things for like 500 miles probably, and ended up giving them to a friend. I traded for some, I forget what I traded for, and I got a really good set of tires, so I didn't need them anymore, nor did I want to ride around on them and risk it. But like, it's like a around town vehicle. Didn't really do a whole lot of, I went to the beach a couple times with it, with the slime in the tires, and it was fine. So if I remember right, you lay the tire flat, and then it's got this nice little hand pump. Pump it up. There's a certain, excuse me, I'm just getting over a cough, so apologize in advance if I cough a little bit. Okay, I got to shake it, position the valve in the upper half of the tire, shake it for 30 seconds, slowly remove the valve core with tool in the bag. So there's a, oh cool, I guess there's a valve core remover. Yep, right here. All right, cool. I don't have to go dig mine out. And remember, you have to like roll it around. Remove object and allow tire to deflate. Got that. Don't have to worry about that with this one. Pump. So put the slime in, reinstall valve core, and just add air. If it was that easy, just add air. And then I think I like rolled him around the yard with one of my buddies just to get the slime to kind of slush around. And does it say how much? I'm sure it's probably on here or on the internet someplace. So we'll just add enough. We'll kind of wing it while we're doing that. So I'll get all this ready, and we'll go over there and we'll start putting some slime in. All right, let's see if our tool works. Whoop. There we go. It's moving. Feels like the little O-ring's just self-destructing as I'm moving it. That's fine. Just needs to work once it's together. Like I said, I've got more valve cores. I kind of hate to waste a valve core on these though. I might need to go get my tools, or my tool. We'll see. This tool works, but it's like kind of. Oh, I don't know if you can hear that. Oh, that's not good. We're going to go get a pick and some other stuff to try to get that out. Before we remove the whole entire valve stem, I'll be right back. Okay, so I got the broken piece of the valve core out. Just used 2 bent picks and kind of like put pressure on 2 sides of the inner wall of the broken bottom piece and fished it out, and it got okay. I think I might only put slime in the tire that needs it the most and mess with that right now because I'm getting really, really antsy to actually start doing some work and pulling this thing apart and really seeing what I'm working with. Regardless of what I do to it, unless I just fully scrapped it, which I doubt that's the case, I will get new tires for it. Just obviously, depending on the way I go with the project, tires will be extremely different. Like I'll probably try to go as big as I can while keeping a low center of gravity with some really aggressive tread if I do go hardcore with it. But if it's just a CJ7, they're really good with 33s and they look pretty error correct. Plus I don't have to worry about re-gearing or brakes or anything else with this. So, but for now I want to show you the busted up valve stem. So the one up top is what I pulled out. Here's what it's supposed to look like. And I went and took this off the shelf. So this is brand new. So the valve stem could have been a good reason why this tire was leaking, but given the way it looks and some of the dry rot, like I'm a little skeptical of the whole tire. The actual valve, the valve stem itself seemed to be pretty healthy. At first, while I had the camera off, I just kind of wiggled it from side to side, seeing if it dry rotted to break it off, because then I could just break the bead off and go and put a new valve stem with new fresh core in it. But then I got the thinking though that as old as these tires are, I do not want to mess with pulling them off those rims. Who knows what happens once that you break the bead on that? You may rip or stretch the tire, and I can almost guarantee as much memory as in the side of that tire from sitting flat and sitting in the sun and all the UV hitting it. Like, it's probably going to be a pain to reseat, nor do I want to shoot a ton of air through that and risk having that thing blow up. So yeah, we'll just fill it with some slime, put the new valve core in it, and go from there. So there's no instructions about any special way to attach the end of this, and I think I used the actual 1-quart jugs last time, or 1-quart containers, and just, it's like a regular gear oil container, and squeeze it in. But I've got the valve core out. It does say to, and I'm doing this by the numbers with the instructions, so that if it doesn't work, I kind of know what I'm getting into with slime in the future. Because like I said, I've only used it once before, and it worked pretty well for what it was supposed to do. It says position valve in upper half of tire, but I don't know if that's to remove the air or put the slime in. We're just going to put the slime in. Oh yeah. Oh, it's chunky. There's pressure in the tire, so the tire, I think this is going to work pretty good. Like, I've got a ton of resistance on the pump. That's a really good sign. I don't hear air pumping out, because as this thing is trying to pump the slime in, it's actually pushing a little bit of air. I mean, nothing crazy, but it's super chunky. Like, I'll bring you in to see it. Hopefully you can get a good idea of like how thick this stuff is. All right, I'm back with air. Just want to push the rest of the slime down so it doesn't actually gum up the valve core. Perfect. It's pushing air back out. I think we're in business. Oh, and I went and got a real valve core tool. The one that came with the slime worked just fine, but I was already in with all my tire stuff, and this is a lot more convenient. All right. Now I'm going to get the slime spread even before I put air in it, and kind of, I can hear it kind of moving around in there. I'll be right back. I'm going to go roll this thing around. Okay, I'm back. Super uneventful. I think I'm going to put 10 pounds in and go from there. So far, no hissing, nothing coming from the actual tire. I've heard if you've got a really bad leak, you can actually see some of the slime start to kind of ooze out as pressure builds up. We're at 10 pounds. I'm almost afraid to go too high, or anything realistically what you would run in a normal car. or I'm at 15 pounds. Like if you come in, oh, look at that. Mm. And if any Jeep purists that are watching this wondered why I wasn't going to keep the CJ wheels, that's not the main reason. The main reason is they're all different. That probably could be bead blasted and these could be saved, but I don't care enough to do that or mess with it. So they're going to be perfect rollers as long as they can hold air. Check this out. I was on the other side of the shop and walking up to it, to the Jeep. Kind of looks like a real Jeep now. It's worth mentioning that prior to removing all these bolts and taking this drive shaft out, I went through and sprayed not only the bolts and the straps, but basically everything around the U-joint with penetrating lube. And I did that multiple times, and I cleaned them off really well too with some brakes parts cleaner, and then did it again prior to actually going and trying to remove this, because this Jeep has a lot of wear on it. There was plenty of play in the drive shafts, and I doubt the previous owners took the time to go through and put new U-joints in before beating on the Jeep. And you can even see here that I had to go get a pry bar to pop that U-joint out, but all in all, it came out pretty easy and uneventful. Here, I'm removing the mechanical clutch linkage, which is pretty easy to remove and install if you're thinking of putting a new one in your Jeep. There, I just took out the adjuster bolt, and now I'm going to remove a big spring that is what retains it's called the retainer spring. It's what holds the clutch fork in place under tension. You can see that clutch fork is really messed up. It's just flopping around everywhere. So who knows what's going on in the bell housing. Anyways, here I'm going to remove the actual bracket that holds what I think is commonly referred to as the pivot shaft. And the bracket end you're seeing right here has an actual greasable joint inside that pivot shaft. So I'm going to leave that all together since it's all brand new, and I'm going to put it back on the Jeep if I keep this drivetrain. And now I'm on the other end of that pivot shaft, and I just removed a little tiny cotter pin that retaining clip that holds this shaft to the actual rod that is connected to the clutch pedal. It's what engages that shaft and eventually ultimately shifts or engages the fork and allows you to shift. And this has a similar bracket that was bolted to the bell housing. And you can see here, I'm just undoing the bolts, and I'm going to take this thing off in one piece and keep it all together for a reinstall. Inside that pivot shaft are some retaining rings, and they hold these end kind of like grease bearings. I think they call them pivot bearings in the actual parts listing. And that whole shaft is just filled with grease. So rather than make a mess and have to go through and reinstall it for no reason, since I know it's new, I'm going to keep it in one piece and put it off to the side. So now that we've got most everything underneath the Jeep attached to the transmission undone, minus the actual bolts that are holding it to the skid plate / transmission mount. But before we actually pull it, we'll go through and undo all that. I didn't spray them with any kind of penetrating lube because luckily they're just covered in grease. So I'm sure well, I say that now, they'll probably, because I started to say I'm sure they'll come off really easy, they're probably going to be really put up a good fight. So, but now what we're going to do is get everything ready to start actually pulling the engine out. So this Jeep has this really cool, I don't say cool, but I think it's cool, like brush bar style bumper that somebody kind of cobbled together. It's not welded, so you can see right there, turn the light on. It's bolted down, and there's also, it's like not the right fit. So I don't know if it was for a Jeep or if it just was close enough. I don't know. I think it's pretty heavy steel if you look at it. I don't know what wall thickness this is, or this one, but I mean, I wouldn't use it as a recovery point or any kind of tow point or anything anyways, but what I'm going to do is try to salvage as much as I can from this front bumper area. And so when I pull this off, this is going to go into the fab side of the shop and sit together. And eventually when I put everything back together, I'm going to use the parts here to make a custom winch bumper for it. I've got a universal winch plate, or I'll cut something on the CNC machine and put it all together so it's one piece. So when I go to remove it, if I'm trying to service it or do anything to the front end, I can just hook it up to the engine hoist, depending how heavy it is, pull the thing off, let it dangle, do my work, and then put it back on, instead of having to go through and have multiple components bolted down. I got to add tow hooks too, so I'll figure a good way to incorporate that. Something to hook recovery straps to, or winch off of, or some kind of point on here. Probably like just a TJ or YJ with the tow hooks up top, or excuse me, recovery hooks up top. But these lights all have to come off right here, and like the good news is, like, I mean, they have water in them, and kind of a little bit there. They haven't worked in who knows how long, so like they're just going to get cut. I'm not even going to take them off the bumper. I may not even use this factory, what looks to be like maybe a TJ, off of a TJ. I'm not sure if these came on CJs. I don't think they did. Or they used them on CJs, YJs, and TJs, and these things have been around forever. I don't know. But I don't know if I'll keep that. I'll see how thick it is. It feels like it's about an 1/8 inch thick. Maybe. Maybe a little thinner. I don't know. So maybe after adding the winch plate to it, it'll stay on pretty. Won't be that bad. But I don't know how strong it is. It is steel. So, and like when you have a project like this, anything you can reuse and incorporate in the project when you're building it up and not spend money on it is awesome, because all the little stuff adds up fast. It adds up super fast. And like when you have a significant other, a wife, girlfriend, spouse, whatever you have, that wants to know why everything costs so much on these vehicles, it helps when you can do some stuff for free. And when you justify like why this stuff costs a lot of money, because it does, like the sensors on a fuel injection system, they all add up. That $20 part, it's $20 by itself. But like when you have to buy like 17 of different $20 parts or whatever, and they're not cool things. You're just replacing like broken parts. You're not modifying it. You're not putting your touch on it. You're not buying wheels, tires. Like, it kind of sucks. It's like, dang man, I just wanted to like make this thing cool, but you got to make it run before you can make it cool. So yeah, I'm gonna reuse all of this. So I'm just gonna unbolt it, take it over to the fab side, and then I'll probably get in the engine bay and start undoing everything there. And then we'll take the grill off. I don't know if I'll take the grill off today, but I just want to get fluids drained that need to be drained. Anything in the engine bay that needs to be disconnected, and get it ready. And then I'm probably going to swing it over to where the Xterra is. So that way, as I'm pulling the engine out, I can just put it right over here. And that way, I've got a dedicated space to go through and take it apart, clean it up, diagnose it, and see what I'm going to do with it. And it's not in the middle of my shop, like right here, like just throwing it all there. Because some of the bigger vehicles I have, like if I pull them in where the Xterra is, I run out of real estate pretty quick when I start working on them. So, and I like to have my stuff organized. So I've got some stuff I want to do to my Suburban, and I'd like to have my tool cart out. I'd like to have a place for the repair parts, place for the old parts. It makes the jobs a lot faster. And so, especially when you got multiple projects going on at the same time, you got to stay organized. So, all right, I'm going to stop talking and I'm going to start pulling this thing apart. The bolts look okay. They don't look like shiny and new, but they don't look like they've got crust from 30 years ago like growing on them. And because I don't know, maybe the previous owner put this thing on and got it off in their Jeep. Who knows? Now, all of them are pretty loose because there's a funny story behind this bumper. When I went and picked it up, because the owner said it would, when I called him and talked to him on the phone, he said it would start and it would probably move under its own power and go on the trailer. I was like, cool. I'll drive a couple hours, I'll grab a U-Haul, because I got rid of my car hauler trailer when I moved, and which I miss greatly, having that. It's like when you have a big equipment trailer, like you use it for the things you made it for, and then you use it for odds and ends that like you kind of underappreciate when you have it, because you're like, oh, I'll just get the trailer. And when you get rid of the trailer, you need it all the time for stuff. So I went and picked it up, and I'm not worried about keeping these bolts. Oh, yeah, here we go. This one's actually bent. You can't really, I don't know if you can tell. No, I can't tell too much probably from the camera. I went and picked it up. And adjust you. And shocker, it would not start or run or move under its own power. So here I am with a U-Haul trailer, and the guy's like trying really hard. Like he really thought it would start and run. He wasn't like, I don't think he was lying to me. He was like sweating bullets. And so we had no way to get it on. I took my high lift jack just in case I needed to use that to ratchet the thing on, which is really less than ideal. I've done that a couple times and it works, but it's super slow. And anytime you're putting a whole bunch of tension on those things and you've got straps, like you can have something go bad. But I went and he had a come along. So we used that plus some toe straps I had, and I went and hooked it up and I was like, hey, is this bumper solid? He's like, oh yeah. So I went, I think I hooked it like down here on one of these points. And like, man, the first crank on the come along, this whole bumper just started like coming off. So yeah. And the guy was like kind of mad. He was like, what? I don't like you wanna buy the Jeep before you actually own it? And I'm like, what? I kind of came here to buy it. I am buying it. I've already committed. We're putting this big pile on my trailer. But yeah, so this is not connected very good at all. So it should come off very easy. And I'm not hoarding this bent hardware. Maybe the washer and the lock nuts. I don't know about you guys, but I'm a hoarder when it comes to like any hardware that looks remotely close to being good. And you know that 1% of a chance when you need to use it and you use it, it's very satisfying. So I don't know, my wife would say otherwise when she sees like jars and, you know, I've got them pretty organized in tubs. She's like, why do you have these old bolts? I'm like, man, because you never know. You never know. And so I am not going to keep this. This is going to go in the metal pile. So, no, it's already even looser than it was. But these are coming off pretty nice. Whoever put it on did use some grade A hardware. But these bolts are dinky, man. They are, they're 3/8 bolts. So they're not the strongest. There is 4 points, so it's probably better than nothing. But man, no, I'm super pumped though. This thing's actually like solid. This front brush part, I've got plenty of scrap steel that I can craft a really good bumper without it, but I think if I could like offset the winch so it's like high enough, or you know what I could do, I could probably lower this a little bit so the front of the winch kind of pops out the front. Because there's a little bit of interference on this bottom bar. But I don't know, we'll see. I also could use it on the F-250 when I build the bumper for that, because it needs a cool 70s era bumper, because the factory one is smashed and it was kind of a turn. Oh yeah, you can see this one a little bit. This one is totally bent from like the one crank on the come along. So like, yeah, that's gonna get metal pile. Washers are also toast too. Oh, look at that. Two off. The bottom's like barely on. There we go. These are kind of in a, these are on the inside of the, what appears to be a factory Jeep bumper of some year. Oh, they're finger tight though, so we don't need to worry about getting any kind of tool up in there. I can hold this thing down with my finger. Oh, there we go. Yeah, those are crap bolts. We'll just, there we go. Wow, how many washers do you need? So there were 2 washers stacked on the bottom side. Probably up. 3 washers stacked on the bottom side. So probably to offset that weird gap fitment issue, which by the time I put a winch plate underneath there, or even incorporate just cut one out, I've got plenty of thick steel that I can cut on the plasma table, and it would probably fit perfect. And if it didn't, I could also kind of wallop it out, or offset it out, so it fit in with the grooves, and then weld around where these were originally bolted in, and maybe even plug weld where the holes for the original bolts were. I don't know. This is a good piece though. That's for sure. Let's see if this one's fingered. That one's, I think this one's a little, maybe, well, the bolts aren't even long enough. It's probably a sign. Oh, finger tight. Like, I don't think this, if you hit like a tree with this in a trail, like just say sliding down like a decline, or maybe off like a ridge or an obstacle, like this thing's not holding up. It's bending. Like things are bending, things are breaking. These 2 bottom bolts are like rusted as can be, and also too short, and the nut wasn't even on all the way. So, like I said, man, this was probably somebody's first like project maybe, and it was, and like maybe good intentions, and it was neglected though. Like it was beat on pretty hard. All right, this has a lot of washers too. You're gonna hear it. I don't know if you'll see it. Oh, oh. Whoa, we got a winner. So we have two washers there, 2 washers there. This had 4 washers stacked. underneath it, like that much washer stacked to offset that gap. So no wonder the thing like screamed for dear life when we put the come along on it. Cause like this doesn't weigh that much. Like I can push it around even with flat tires. Even with flat tires, I can push it around pretty good. So, but here is that, oh, something's in it. Hope that's not rust, but we'll find out. Got a little bit of pitting, but like this is solid. Look at these side pieces. And even if it's junk, I just like the design to mock up my own kind of push bar for the other vehicles. It's easy. This would be an easy fab project. 2 pieces of straight tubular steel and 2 of these end pieces with tabs on them, which are welded on as well. There's nothing bent here. Couldn't really bend that. But, yep. Cool. All right, that's off. And then, yeah, well, let's see. Actually, I can leave this factory bar on because I've got enough clearance to pull everything out. So I think what we'll do, yeah, the lights aren't going to get in the way. And honestly, that if the transfer case or transmission hit any of these on the way out, they're just going to rip off. And I'm totally cool if they just rip off because these are throwaway. I'm not wasting more time on them. This is all junk though. I've got a metal bin. I'm going to use it. These will all go to good purpose and make me like way less than a penny probably. But we throw them out. We will keep the nylon lock washers, lock nuts, though, excuse me. I'll start a little pile over here where I plan on putting the drivetrain. I've got a spot on my shelf that is ready to accept parts. And we'll put this back on because I've got a history of losing these little, get what you call them, these little air cleaner nuts on the end of them. Most of my vehicles have just regular nuts and washers on them because of that. So I will start putting this away. And there's not a whole lot on this thing to keep it from coming out. Coolant hoses, which I'm kind of like, I don't know, man. I'm not looking forward to making a mess on my floor. So I'll wait to do the coolant last before I start pulling the radiator out and everything. And I think this whole clip can come out with the radiator in it. The radiator is smashed, but it doesn't leak. So we'll see what the drivetrain looks like and what we end up doing with this radiator, because it will not support a larger engine, and it probably doesn't have much life left in it. So if I reuse it, I don't know. Like I said, man, you want to get a game plan, a solid game plan before you start buying stuff. So we'll try to reuse it to at least get it running. Maybe we'll see. I got a fuel return line, fuel feed line. This can come off here, maybe, or there. Trying to figure out how I want to pull it apart. I don't have an engine test stand. I would love to make one day. I bought some parts for my old Ford from a dude that had this like wild custom made engine stand, and I tried to get it from him, and he would not let it go. And he's like kind of probably done rebuilding engines and whatnot. And I was like, oh man, it'd be awesome, because like rebuilding a motor and putting it back in, you're assuming everything's good, but until that thing runs, and if it's got a crazy cam in it, goes through a quick break-in, gets a couple hundred miles on it, like, I don't know, it's kind of in its fragile state, and you're always paranoid about any feeling or anything you hear with it. So an engine stand would be awesome. I don't have one, so I'm not too worried about that. This can stay on, this can stay on. Lots of vacuum lines, I will say that. I'm going to try to keep as much as I can on the engine. Radiator clips, radiator, or not radiator, alternator. Let's get that off. Starter solenoid, we can take that off from down there. If I'm lazy, do it up here. And ignition wires. The harness is like totally loose. The wires all coming down. So some of these I'm actually going to mark because, to be honest, like I'm not that familiar with the engine components and compartment of a CJ7. I will be after working on this one, but everyone makes mistakes, and it's much easier to put it back in if you know exactly where everything's supposed to go. So oh, that's kind of weird. Let's get a tape off one of them. And just mark it. So I kind of remember where it's at. There's no perfect science to it. Like I've marked off wires super neat inside an engine bed. And let me tell you, like after you work on it and spray like whatever you're spraying, brakes parts cleaner or whatnot, half the markings all get blotted out and disappear. So it's not worth spending a lot of time on. That is. Oh, got it. Fuel pump. To fuel filter. To. Oh, I'm just seeing what kind of carburetor it is. Looks like it's a Reman. Let's get a game plan here. I think I'm going to pull from, I'm going to keep things kind of tight on the engine. So I'm going to pull some of these long lines off and drape them around so that way I don't catch them on anything or damage them. Because actually some of these lines have been replaced. I can see they're newer. And I'm actually checking to make sure it's a fuel line right now. It doesn't look like it. I don't know. I'll clean it up a little bit and see, make sure. I've got plenty of fuel lines, so it doesn't make sense to risk it. But let's start undoing some hoses. And then I'm going to get some different size hose pliers. If you've never used these hose pliers, these are really handy for a lot of things. Not just for moving hoses, but they really help you get in there and quickly get them off without totally destroying the hoses. You can still damage hoses with these pretty easy, but if you get in, finesse it, wiggle around, and pull back, then typically you can get hoses off a lot easier. at least in my set, works just fine. And yeah, there we go. There should be some fuel, maybe. No, dry, super dry. And this line, although newer, I don't think it's fuel line. It's got some crap on it. Put that out there. Power steering, pump, power steering, or excuse me. Yeah, this has power steering. Cool. For some reason, I think because it doesn't have power brakes, I thought it did not have power steering. So that's actually a pleasant surprise. And kind of strange. I wonder if this engine's from the same Jeep. Because I thought a lot of them with the non-power options just had manual almost everything. It could be like a different engine, different body, different frame. Who knows when we get into it. Over there. We're going to take the carburetor off. I'm going to, excuse me, not the carburetor off, the line off. I'm going to get a better angle. Think you can see me? Yep, you can see me. I'm going to loosen this bolt up. There we go. Some of the clips that were used on the hoses are all like way too big. So they're either sticking into their neighbor hose next to them, or they are getting stuck on like whatever they're around. Trying to be very careful not to bend this hard line any more than it already is. And you'll kind of see from the other footage when I zoom in on it, or when I have the close-up of it. But there is some corrosion because this thing sat for so long and not running, no fuel. It had a chance to dry out, and the hose is stuck. There we go. Well, that's not good. Whatever. Probably just... I think this is... If you can see that. I mean, this is getting replaced if the engine's saved or if it's a new engine. So like, I'm not too worried about it, but... Oh, got the... oil pressure or temp gauge or temp sending unit. Perfect. So that's definitely the temp sending unit. Because now I have coolant coming out on the floor. I'm going to get a bucket. There we go. I'm actually going to let that drain out and work on some other stuff. And that'll also help evacuate some of the coolant that is all up in the upper part of the radiator and the upper radiator hose. So like whatever, that worked out. Next, I have these coolant lines running to the heater core to the HVAC system that doesn't work at all on this thing. So I'm going to pull those off the engine. And I'm guessing that there's probably coolant in them. Maybe. I'm going to pop the coolant. See if we can speed up this drain process. Well, it's pretty dry up top, so I'm going to leave this thing back on there. And move that. Move that. And I think what I'll do is I'll start taking these off right here. Yeah. So these bolts or these nuts on these clamps are pretty crusty. So I definitely want to make sure they fit right, so I don't end up having to cut this thing, cut the hoses. Junkyard style. You ever been in a junkyard? You notice how all the hoses are just cut? I mean, they yank those engines out so fast. Although this Jeep is really close to being a junkyard Jeep, I do not want to do it junkyard style right now. There we go. Bone dry. I'm happy with that right now. Coolant circulated through when I ran it because I was putting a temp gun on it and it was like 180, 185 and it held it, and I let it run for quite a while before I drove it and almost crashed it. Oh, more crust. Yep. So, honestly, this isn't the crustiest Jeep I've ever had, or the worst shape. I had a CJ2A at one point in time, and like, it was cool. It looked really cool, but what had happened is like somebody tried to restore it and painted over everything. Like they knocked any corrosion off, and they painted it really good with like some kind of tractor paint, and so it was really thick and it hid so much, man. It had the old Go Devil engine in it that was totally locked. I probably spent like $50 on random Marvel Mystery Oil, carb cleaner, even put diesel in it, trying to like free it up. Because those old motors, like they sit for so long that sometimes get them freed up, they're just seized. They're just stuck. They just need a little encouragement from tons of chemicals. And no, nothing happened to it. And I had to move because we were moving, and that was a project that needed to go. So I offloaded it, and pretty disappointed I never got to do anything with it. Because you can find those old Jeep motors pretty, they use them in, I think they still use them in third world countries and swamp boats. And those engines that stick out the back and have the prop, like in Southeast Asia. If I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong, this had coolant. I'm going to get another bucket. Perfect. Oh, I've also got a cool tool that, well, I think a lot of the tools are cool. I think almost all tools are cool. There's some that are terrible that should never have been invented, but watch this. I'll be right back. This is just a fluid extraction pump. These are inexpensive. When you're working on something and you got a little coolant or any kind of fluid, this is in the engine. Oh yeah. I hope you can see that. And then I'll just discharge it into the coolant bucket. This just dropped out of the engine bay. It's like a wood screw. Who knows? Who knows? I'm going to take the return line off now, coming from the fuel pump. So, like I said, I had a new fuel pump put in it, and it sat for a really long time too. So I probably if I reuse this motor, I'm suspect of the fuel pump too. Those diaphragms in these things, just if they sit forever, they've never got fluid hitting them, like they can go bad pretty easy. And the fact that this thing probably cranked over and over again in this dude's, the previous owner's driveway, and it wasn't getting fuel, because he said he tried to start it a lot, and I believe it. Makes me wonder if this thing was just bone dry, moving around, doing fuel pump things, but not pumping fuel. And I just don't think that's the best for these old mechanical fuel pumps with diaphragms. I mean, they're almost like a wear part. They are a wear part, but I mean, they get replaced more than you think. All right, bone dry. Cool. Starter solenoid. Let's remove that. And if you're wondering about disconnecting the battery, worry no more. There's no battery in this, if you couldn't tell. Now we're going to take the upper radiator hose off, but it's actually kind of gross. There's a little bit of corrosion on what looks to be a really old bolt, and that was not bad, just in case. Just in case. Let that sit on there. Right. The hose clamp placement on these is less than desirable, but it looks like somebody replaced these. But I mean, they put the bolts so you can't access them too easy from the front. So I'm actually like on the actual bolt head with my socket at an angle, but luckily these weren't very tight. So, and the hose clamps are also way too big for the diameter of the hose, so these will not get reused and will go in the metal bin. If you use a hose clamp that is outside of the spec of diameter that it's for whatever hose it's going on to clamp, it will clamp, but it will not clamp as effective as a hose clamp that is actually being used within the diameter range that it was designed for. Because it's like you're taking a circle and you're oblonging it the harder you clamp in, because it's just the way that the bolt bites down. So in a pinch, like, yeah, if that's all you've got, you're stranded, or you're I don't know, like you're trying to get on the road really fast and it's the only thing you got in your shop, then like, hey, do whatever you can. But it is good practice to try to use hose clamps that actually fit. And you can get like a master hose clamp set. This one's, okay, so this one is actually, let's see if you make sure you can see it. It is stuck. See how it's out? Because it bit down so hard, it actually probably, yeah. So look at that. It's biting into the hose. I mean, like that happens with a normal, with really any hose clamp will do that over time. But like this is a new hose, newer. And I don't know. Let's see if that comes off. I'll probably get a pick in there. There we go. Perfect. Perfect. This hose actually looked like it was in okay shape, so I don't want to ruin it. And I don't have anything big enough hose plier size that will get in there and actually rip that thing out, other than massive vice grips. So what I'll do is I'll play around with some funky size picks, and I'll break this thing, see if I can get in there and just like ease it up. Yep, there we go. And then I'll spray some PB Blaster in there. Or whatever your penetrating lube of choice is. Pop this hose like I was showing you. And then, as it's kind of like sitting around the edge of the hose, I'll get in there and kind of work this thing up. And you can see the PB Blaster will like make its way to whatever's opening up. There we go. And usually, that's enough. Yep. There we go. Oh yeah, there's corrosion. So it's not too bad, but you can see right in here, it was becoming one with the hose. And inside the hose, just had a little bit of corrosion around there. And you can also see that it did not have a uniform amount of pressure around the whole entire hose. Probably because that hose clamp was way too big for it, but if you use some gasket shellac, I've got it right here. This stuff's awesome. I had a really good friend that got me hooked on it with coolant hoses, and I've used it on vacuum hoses too, that are big, that are in places you do not have the ability to like get a tool in there, get your hand in very easy. Because not only does it ensure there's some kind of seal, because this will seal, and it's a temporary seal. It's not like a RTV maker gluing it down, but it also lets it break off and prevents corrosion on there too. So this is on all of my trucks. I've been running it for years, and you don't want to put a ton on there because like it could make its way in the coolant system. There's not enough in there to hurt anything. It's not going to clog anything, but it just needs a little bit. I mean, even if you only get part of the hose and the inner surface of the hose, like that part's not corroding. So that hose is going to wiggle enough where it usually will snap off. But all of my hoses on all of my trucks that I've serviced and built come off extremely easy. And I don't have leak problems typically. Like I just pulled a Suburban out of storage earlier in the week, and I was expecting some kind of leak because I put all the coolant hoses on that thing like 10 years ago, and all high quality hoses. And I had one leak, but that was because of a clamp I just didn't tighten down, but nothing. And I feel like this contributes to some of that because you also like get it on really easy and it bites. I don't know. But this will prevent that corrosion from happening too. All right. Well, we're kind of down to the wire. We've got to drain the oil, pull off the lower radiator hose, and I think that's it. And then when I start pulling the engine out, what I'll do is I go really slow and really slow. And with a big engine hoist, like it's easy to go in really small increments. And I listen and I check and I constantly check to see if I'm ripping anything out with it. Because that happens, like I've done that before. That's just part of it. You know, you don't want to do that, but especially on a vehicle you're just not familiar with. Like you don't know where everything is. Like I said, this doesn't have much holding it down. I got to undo the motor mounts, which could probably benefit from some PB Blaster sitting on them. I see a ground strap down there. And oh man, check this out. I just noticed something spectacular. It's not bad, I really don't care, but this is the smog system on this engine. This is the exhaust manifold with the intake manifold tucked, kind of combined with it. And it all comes out the same side of the cylinder head. It's a similar setup to YJs and TJs on the 2.5 liter and the 4 liter inline six. And I think that's pretty similar in a lot of straight six motors. But so this is a smog system, and check that out. Somebody just threw a bolt in there and then like kind of welded around it, like tried. It looks like 10% of it hit the bolt, 90% of it probably went on the, probably 80% went on the smog piece, and then another 10% splattered all over the engine, right next to the fuel system, right next to the carburetor. And I mean, you could have just like put a bolt with a hose wrapped around it and clogged that thing in there. There's so many ways that like you could do that without welding the bolt in. So cap the hose off, run the hose out, put a bolt at the end of it. I don't know, but I'm going to remove all that when I pull this thing out and have it easily accessible to work on an engine stand, or whatever I do with it. I mean, I may keep it on there and it may go on Marketplace, depending what I do with the Jeep. Okay, we're down to removing the lower radiator hose, and I'm just going to pull it off the radiator. I'm not going to worry about taking it off the engine yet. Oh, yep. It is. It might be easier to remove the radiator and pull it out, because, oh man, there we go. Yep. Just wiggle it off. Oh yeah, I feel fluid in there. It wants to come off. And if it does, my hand is going right into a metal fan. So this Jeep will get some vengeance on all the negative things I've said about it, or it's going to be really happy that I'm actually trying to give it some love. And I'm not going to shred my forearm. It's a newer hose. That's good. Oh, yeah. The good news is it's draining into the bucket, which that never happens like you plan on it. Oh, yeah. That's the kind of mess we're talking about. Oh, come on, buddy. None of that is draining into the bucket. Okay, like 10% of it is. Now we're going to go ahead and remove the exhaust system from the engine. So I'm going to actually use a little cordless sawzall to cut just below the manifold. This is a really patched together rusty exhaust system, so everything from the engine back is going to get scrapped anyways, and I'll have to put something new in. So there's no point in trying to fight rusty bolts on this thing. So I've got the extraction tool, and I'm going to just get in there and find a good free spot and cut. You definitely want to be careful when using one of these little sawzall, especially in the engine bay, because depending on your blade size, you can destroy whatever's in front of it. In this case, I've got the engine block and the oil pan just below it, so I'm not too worried about it. Plus, I have a short blade, and that's intentional. Almost got it off. I think my little Sawzall is struggling a little bit. It does that sometimes, but it's a really good little versatile tool that I bought in a pinch when I needed one really bad, and the only one I could find reasonably priced was this little baby Skill, and it's been pretty good. And we are detached from the exhaust system. That's going to do it for today. I'm going to leave the front grille and the radiator in because I still have to move this Jeep around the shop. Because I'm going to get it set up in a better position for extracting the drivetrain and also laying all the parts out and organizing them so we can clean them and see what we're working with. If you made it this far, you're awesome. Thank you so much. That means a lot. If you had an old Jeep, if you have a Jeep project now, let me know what you did with it. In the comments, I'd love to hear, did you turn it into a capable off-road vehicle? What kind of state was it in when you got it? Was it a kind of neglected pile like this one? Or was it a pristine Jeep that still needed a lot of work? I'm still trying to figure out what I'm going to do with this thing. And I've been running through kind of ideas in my head the whole time I've been working on it. And I know as things progress, I'll figure out the vision I have for it. But I'm really excited to get this project moving. So any kind of input you guys have would be absolutely awesome. So, all right, until next time, take it easy.